Former President Donald J. Trump wants no part of GOP committees using his name for fundraising events that are for those Republicans who joined socialists in the unconstitutional impeachments. His statement read, quote, "No more money for RINOs." Trump released another statement Tuesday, reading in part, quote, "I fully support the Republican Party and important GOP committees, but I do not support RINOs and fools. So much money is being raised and completely wasted by people that do not have the GOP's best interests in mind," end quote. Joining me now to discuss this, Newsmax analyst and the host of Dick Morris Democracy right here on Newsmax TV, Mr. Dick Morris. Dick, you know, I think the president has a point here. I mean, Kinzinger, Cheney, Sass, Romney, Toomey, along with 12 other Republicans, they voted against the Constitution. Not a very Republican thing to do. What do you make of this whole spat?
And they voted against the president. I think that this is the surfacing of a simmering fight between Trump and the Republican National Committee that has been going on the whole time of the Trump campaign. The Republican committee, for example, refused to pay the costs of Air Force One, which party committees have always paid for incumbent presidents. They refused to pay for the polling that Trump had to do. Normally, that's paid for by the party committee. And the party committee, the Republican National Committee, is basically run, in effect, by Karl Rove, you know, the guy who shows up on CNN occasionally. And that's Fox News, I'm sorry, occasionally. And they're mainly his people who are in charge there. And when Trump attacked Rove, which he did a few days ago as a pompous fool, that was really surfacing a fight that's been going on under the surface. And the Republican National Committee right now is basically staffed by RINOs, by people who are never Trumpers, never liked Trump, and didn't support him in the nomination. And the House and the Senate campaign committees are in similar shape. The Senate committee was run by McConnell. Now it's run by Scott of Florida, who's much more pro-Trump. But it has always been run by McConnell, who is, as you know, a never Trumper. The House is a little better. McCarthy has been very good with Trump. But this is Trump basically taking over control of the Republican Party. The Republican Party is those committees.
Let me ask you about that, because there was a debate as to whether or not, and I believe that there was going to be a legitimate third party that was made up of the 60 to 70% of the conservative base of the Republican Party, and then maybe the 10 to 15% of Democrats who don't want to be socialists and Democrats who believe in free speech, that if there was going to be anybody to pull off a robust another party would be President Trump. But he said no, he wants to fight for control over the Republican Party. What do you think about that decision-making process?
Oh, he's completely right. Look, he's got 90% of the Republicans with him. Let the other 10% form their own party. Why should he? He's got them with him, and it's just a question of exercising that power. So what he's basically done is instead of going back and forth with them, he said, look, vote with your checkbooks. If you want to give money to the RINOs and to the Republican establishment and McConnell, write a check to the National Republican Senate Committee or the Republican National Committee. But if you want to give money to my guys, to the America First people, to the MAGA people, to the Trump supporters, don't give it to them. Give it to my PAC, which is the America First Super Action PAC. And if people do that, all the oxygen will go out of those committees and will flow to Trump, and he'll control it all. He's basically disemboweling those committees.
Now, what did you have a conversation with the former president about? Can you divulge any of that?
No, not at this point.
Okay, you know, there's a lot of fun. The Hill's writing about it and everything. Okay, well, let me ask you this. Gavin Newsom made some big news in his State of the State address that his state is not going anywhere, may not return to normal anytime soon. Watch this.
When this pandemic ends, and it will end soon, we're not going to go back to normal, because I think we all agree normal was never good enough. You know, normal accepts inequity.
Wow. Okay. What do you make of this, Mr. Morris?
Well, I object to his backdrop, welcome to Dodger Stadium. I'm a Yankee fan. But putting that aside for a minute, I think that I think that that is a key point that he's making. The Democratic Party is using this pandemic as an excuse for all kinds of social engineering legislation. Rahm Emanuel put it best. He said, don't let any good crisis go to waste. And that's really what they're attempting to do. In terms of the issue of going back to normal, I think it's worth noting that when you compare those states that had lockdowns with those that did not, the states that had lockdowns have a lower incidence of the virus by about 25%. But the same death rate, the absolutely same death rate, no difference. So what the shutdowns did was self-inflict wounds on their economy, their businesses, their people, from which they may never recover, all in the name of stopping people from getting sick as opposed to saving lives.
Now, what is coming up this weekend on Dick Morris Democracy?
Well, we're going to talk about the coming inflation. We're sitting here cruising around in the Arctic waters, and there's this huge iceberg that we're headed right for that may well sink this whole ship. And the story of the next few years may well be battling double-digit inflation, Weimar Republic-style inflation, where people use dollar bills for kindling and wallpaper. That's what we're talking about.
Yep, and there is a huge danger when you got Larry Summers saying it's a good possibility, you know, when you get the left and the right telling you the same thing. It might be something to pay attention to. Dick Morris, always appreciate the time.
Economist coming on who says that. Good. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the time.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, where real news for real people.